Hi, I see that we have some people on the line so far. I just want to give it a couple of more minutes until, of course, 2:30 before we get started. As we are waiting, please review this slide for some Zoom tips for success. Just a heads up, this webinar is being recorded for you all to view later. So everyone is muted, but again, this webinar is being recorded.
Oh, hi, everyone. We've had a question regarding handouts. So yes, this presentation will be distributed after today. You'll receive a PDF version, as well as these materials will be available on a KLOCS webpage that just went up. So again, these materials will be available prior to go live. So there wasn't one distributed beforehand, but this will be sent out within the next 24 hours or so.
Hello, everyone. We are going to give it 5 more minutes before we get started. Just want to do a couple of call outs. As you can see on the Zoom Tips for Success slide here, please make sure that you are using that Q&A icon pop-up box. We are not utilizing raise hand or the chat function during this webinar, only Q&A. And again, everyone is muted for this webinar because this is a recorded webinar and it will be used for purposes later. So again, I'm going to give it 4 more minutes before we get started. everyone. So thank everyone for joining the KLOCS webinar part 1. It is 2:30, so we are going to go ahead and get started. A couple of things that I would like to note before we continue with the rest of this webinar. Everyone is muted as this webinar is being recorded as I speak right now. A couple of other things to note. Please do not utilize the chat feature or raising your hand as again, this is a recorded webinar, so please put any questions in that Q&A box. As you can see on the screen right now, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should have a Q&A icon. Click on that, and that is how you can get all your questions sent to Laura and myself. Also, we will have system demonstrations throughout this webinar. Please ensure that your computer audio is cut up, that way that you can hear the audio on the system demonstrations. So again, thank you all for joining. My name is Shakira. I will be one of your hosts for today, along with Laura. She will also be speaking to you all as well. We're going to go ahead and get started, but first I'm going to let Laura go ahead and explain our agenda for the day.
Thank you, Shakira. Hi, everyone. My name's Laura, and this is going to be part 1 of 2 of our webinars about KLOCS. So today's session will be about an hour and a half, and then tomorrow's session will be an hour and a half as well. For today, the main topics are going to include just an introduction, so we'll get you familiar with some of the functionality in Zoom. We're going to do an overview about for 15 minutes of what KLOCS is, so that'll cover changes to key policies and processes. We're also going to talk about KOGS. So I know probably a lot of you have gotten emails regarding how you're going to be able to get into KLOCS. So we'll make sure to go over that and spend time for questions. We'll also then focus the next 40 minutes from there on basic system navigation, so do a demonstration of how the system operates. We'll also walk you through how to do an application intake and upload documents. And then we'll save time at the end for Q&A. Now, please note, I know there's about close to 300 people on here. We're not going to be able to get to everyone's questions, but if you enter them in that Q&A button, it'll function, it'll save them. So then what will happen is we'll take the questions that you ask and use that to compile an FAQ document. So again, the questions that we will be answering today will be specific to system functionality. So any policy or business process changes, that'll have to be taken offline and will be included in the FAQ. And then for tomorrow, again, remember this is a 2-part webinar, so same time tomorrow, we'll be covering tasks in KLOCS, so you'll get to see how the reviewers and yourself are going to interact with each other. We'll talk about how to manage active LOCs, and then as well, just do a quick wrap up again. So next I'll hand it back over to Shakira to talk through some of the Zoom functionality.
So a beautiful feature with us using Zoom for today's webinar is the opportunity for you all to kind of have a little interaction. So the first thing that I want to do here, I know that me and Laura have both hit on that Q&A, but there's also another beautiful feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says polls. So once I hit launch poll, you guys will see this pop-up box. So our first question for the day is, who is your favorite men's college basketball team? So go ahead and answer that there. So far, it looks like we are a huge Wildcat group. I'll give it a couple more seconds. I think the win here is unanimous across the board. Sorry to all my Cardinal fans out there. So I'm going to just go ahead and end this poll, as this was just to get you all familiar with, again, using the poll. But so that you all know, we do have a lot of UK Wildcat fans here today. You're going to not like me after this answer, but I don't really care about basketball. So I'm not going to cry if you guys chose Wildcats or the Cardinals. So then next, we actually have one more beautiful poll for you all, just to kind of break the ice here. So if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, which would it be? So give me just a second to put this one up here and go ahead and answer. It is a tie right now between pizza and tacos. Give it a few more seconds for more people to answer here. And please utilize this icebreaker as a good way to introduce you into polls, because not only are we doing this for our icebreaker, but we will also have knowledge check questions throughout. So it's very important to familiarize yourself with this polls feature here. But for the icebreaker, I'll go ahead and end it. And my heart is broken because you guys chose pizza. And I am a taco girl. I love tacos, but tacos was second place. So you guys love pizza, Wildcats and pizza. So next, what we're going to talk about, as I have stated a couple of times so far throughout, how are you going to ask your questions if you guys are muted? So again, we cannot stress this enough to you all. That Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, please make sure you utilize that for all of your questions. Please do not utilize that chat or the raise hand. Again, as this is a recorded webinar and we will not be able to use those features. So for Q&A, all of your questions. Another thing that Laura stressed, and I also want to make sure I stress, all of your questions today for this webinar should be KLOCS specific in regards to the system. We are not going to be able to answer any of those policy or business process related questions. However, if you do have those questions, please go ahead and ask them in that box. However, you will not get an answer from us today, but we will be distributing that FAQ, which is that frequently asked questions document. So we will be sure to get that out to everyone after webinars have concluded, and it will have all of the questions from today's webinar that was submitted in that Q&A box. So one more time, just want to make sure I'm making this very clear. Please do not use that chat or the raise hand. Please put all of your commentary, questions, anything like that in that Q&A box. That way we can make that FAQ document for everyone. So next, what we're gonna show here, this is in regards to our KLOCS user guide. So during both part one, which is of course today, and then part two, which is gonna be tomorrow, of the webinars, we will just be discussing a high-level review of the provider user role and their tasks within KLOCS. However, there's going to be a KLOCS provider information and resource webpage available online. So once this document is uploaded there, you all will be able to access this training guide, which will go into greater detail of glossary of terms, functionality guides, step-by-step directions and details on how to navigate through KLOCS. It will also have a lot of KLOCS screenshots that are just great for referencing and getting familiar with KLOCS. So again, after this webinar, prior to go live, you all will have access to this user guide on that KLOCS webpage. And as you can see, we do have the webpage address listed on the screen. And this is a recorded webinar, so you all will get this webinar after the email is over, or after you will get an email of the webinar after the webinar is over, and you'll be more than welcome to visit this webpage, and we'll have those user guides up there. So again, I've already mentioned it a couple of times, but just want to stress again, heads up, we do have knowledge checks. We just want to make sure that through all the information that is being discussed today, you all are walking away understanding some of this KLOCS information, and you will be utilizing that pose box. So please make sure, I see a couple of people are saying that they cannot get the pose box to pop up. That's okay, no worries. At the bottom, it only will show once I launch the pose box. So once I say go ahead and answer, that pose box should then pop up for you. So what I'm going to do within the next couple of slides, I'm just going to talk about our KLOCS overview, the purpose, and the scope. So on this slide here, to give a brief overview, as you all may know already, DMS is revamping level of care. And so what this means is implementation of KLOCS, which stands for Kentucky Level of Care Systems, is going to eliminate the paper-based LOC application process and transform it all into a technology system. Something to call out here, our non-institutionalized hospice services will remain the same at this time. So non-institutionalized hospice is not going to change, but for everything else, those LOC application processes will go from paper-based to now electronic. So on this slide here, what is the purpose of KLOCS? The purpose is ultimately to streamline level of care processes by improving communication and coordination between all stakeholders. Have no fear, we're going to go into all the KLOCS stakeholders within the next couple of slides. But again, it's to make sure the communication and the coordination is seamless between all parties. And then for the timeline, the KLOCS implementation is scheduled for Monday, August 3rd, 2020. So due to the new regulations that impact billing, the implementation includes policy and process changes to requirements for submitting those LOC requests. So again, KLOCS will go live on Monday, August 3rd, 2020. So now let's talk about what are some of those KLOCS benefits. So ultimately, KLOCS will streamline level of care. Throughout this webinar, you will hear me say LOC a lot. So again, level of care processes across our nursing facilities, our institutionalized hospice service providers, and our intermediate care facilities for individuals with intellectual disabilities. So for that, I will also say ICF, IID. Again, another note that I want to make on this slide, non-institutionalized hospice services are not going to change at this time. So if you can see on this slide, we do have three main benefits listed here on KLOCS. So number one, it's faster, it's more efficient as stakeholders must, moving forward on August 3rd, electronically initiate the LLC process within KLOCS. Secondly, it's going to be more accurate as information is going to be stored in a single system of record, which reduces errors and delays. And then finally, transparency. So all interaction between all stakeholders is going to be automatic as all tasks and notifications will happen directly within KLOCS. So now within the next few slides, we're going to introduce those key stakeholders and how everyone kind of plays a role within the LOC process. So for providers, which is going to be all of you on this call today, that's going to include our nursing facilities, our institutionalized hospice service providers, and again, our intermediate care facilities for individuals with intellectual disabilities, which stands for ICF, IID. So this entire webinar is dedicated to you all. So your responsibility within KLOCS is going to be to complete those LOC applications and also manage LOC applications for individuals. So within KLOCS, a few triggers and notifications associated with providers. You all are going to trigger tasks for the appropriate reviewer after submitting a completed LOC application. Also, you're going to receive electronic notifications regarding updates to LOC applications and also receive notifications once a LOC determination has been made by the appropriate reviewer. And then next, we're going to look into the Department for Medicaid Services, as we will call it DMS. So they're going to hold the responsibility of resolving all partial matches within KLOCS. And they also are going to hold the role as Hospice Pro. So with that role of Hospice Pro, they're going to be the review group responsible for determining LOC for our institutionalized hospice service providers. So all of our IHP applications will go to DMS for that review. A few of their triggers and notifications associated with DMS. So they're going to receive a partial match task once KLOCS detects a potential match for an individual. If you are confused by that statement, don't worry. We're going to talk about partial matches and all of that coming up. So have no fear if you're like, Shakira, I have no clue what you're talking about right now. And then also DMS is going to trigger both an electronic notification for for providers once the partial match is resolved, and they're going to trigger a review task for the appropriate reviewer. Lastly, DMS may trigger an existing LOC task for providers after resolving a partial match. So just to give a heads up, in regards to that existing LOC task for providers, that is going to be discussed in tomorrow's webinar during part 2, when we break down all of those provider tasks. So stay tuned tomorrow to understand that task a little bit more. So then next, we're going to talk about the peer review organization, also known as PRO. So they're going to hold the responsibility of LOC determinations for our PASAR Level 1 only applications, our swing bed applications, our private ICF, and provisional or exempt LOC applications once submitted by providers. They're also going to hold the responsibility of conducting field reviews, LOC assessments, non-PASAR referral reassessments. All that means is our PASAR Level 1 only reassessments, and then LOC corrections. So some triggers and notifications associated with the PRO. Again, they're going to receive all of those review tasks once providers submit LOC applications for PASAR Level 1 only, swing bed, private ICF, and provisional or exempt LOC applications. And then they're also going to trigger an electronic notification to providers once that LOC determination is made. Lastly, the PRO may trigger a lack of information task for providers. So if providers submit an application and the PRO is unable to determine LOC, the PRO may send that application back to providers to review and resubmit for a second time. Yet again, please do not worry if you are like, what is a lack of information task? We will dive deep into that tomorrow during part 2 when we discuss all of our provider tasks. Next, we're going to talk about our community mental health centers, known as CMHC. So CMHCs are going to hold the responsibility of being the first line of review for all PASAR Level 2 LOC applications within KLOCS. So they're going to be responsible for determining LOC for PASAR Level 2 serious mental illness, or SMI LOC applications. They're also going to trigger a review task for BDID after they complete a review for the ID/RC dual recommendation applications. CMHCs may also trigger electronic notifications to providers once an LOC determination is made, or just like the PRO, they may also trigger the lack of information task for providers when applicable. And then finally, CMHCs, they also will receive a lack of information task, but theirs comes from BDID. So that is specific to CMHCs only on that end there. And then last but not least, we're going to discuss our last stakeholder here, which is going to be the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental and Intellectual Disabilities, also known as BDID. So they're going to hold the responsibility of determining LOC for PASAR Level 2, Intellectual Disabilities, ID, Related Condition, RC, and also our state ICF applications. So some of the tasks and notifications associated with BDID, they're going to receive a review task once CMHCs submit that recommendation for the ID/RC dual LOC applications. They're also going to trigger electronic notifications for providers once an LOC determination is made. And then also BDID, as I stated, they may send a lack of information task to the CMHC, but that is directly related to CMHC. So then next I'm going to hand it over to Laura, and she's going to discuss some of the KLOCS policy updates.
Thanks, Shakira. Yep. So I know you all have probably heard, policy updates, processes. What are these new functionalities going to be looking like? What's going to be my new normal? So something I do want to reiterate here is a lot of the same processes. So for example, the MAP 726A, that is going from paper-based to now being electronic. So you're still going to be answering those same questions. It's just you're going to be doing it in KLOCS now. So the first big thing is that LOC application intake. So you're going to have to electronically enter in that application into KLOCS. And then once you submit that LOC application, it's going to trigger a review task for the appropriate review group to determine if LOC is met. Something else that's going to be new for everyone is change of ownership or CHOW. So KLOCS is going to support it when there's a change of ownership between one facility and another. So let's say facility A is now going to be going into for facility B, then that information for that facility A is going to be transitioned over to facility B. So that can be done electronically now. Another big thing with KLOCS is going to be the LOC transfers. So KLOCS does support transferring an individual from one facility or another, as well as with LOC corrections. So certain users are going to be able to make those corrections to completed LOC applications. And then finally, with discharges, so KLOCS allows you to discharge an individual from a facility. And so next up, we're going to have another knowledge check, and I'll go ahead and get that started. So KLOCS is going to go live on what date? And I've gone ahead and launched it. Give everyone a couple minutes, or a couple seconds, excuse me. Awesome. You all have got it correct. It is August 3rd, 2020. Next up, we do have another question. True or false, on August 3rd, 2020, KLOCS is going to become mandatory and replace the current base system for level of care processes. Give me just a moment and I'll go ahead and launch that question. And then I do want to call out that we will get to a point throughout this presentation where we do have a couple questions coming in, so we will pause and answer those questions. Awesome, everyone got that right as well. That is true. Good job, everyone. And then next up, a lot of you are probably wondering, okay, we're going from paper-based to now an electronic system. So you're probably wondering, will my facility's current Medicaid members be in KLOCS? The short answer is yes. The intention is to transition all the active Medicaid members into KLOCS, as well as non-active Medicaid recipients with an LOC less than a year old. So again, just noting that if there is a non-active Medicaid recipient with an LOC older than a year old, more than a year old, that won't be transitioned to KLOCS. So again, I do just want to call that out. And then there is an action item for the facilities. And again, don't worry, this presentation will be shared shortly after we wrap up today. But that first week when you get into KLOCS, you're going to want to go in and verify that all your Medicaid members and those LOCs less than a year old, they're migrated into KLOCS. So the way you can do that, and again, there'll be a video to show you how to do this, is you're going to want on that dashboard screen to go to a member view, and you can compare your roster with the active LOCs in KLOCS. Now, this is something else. Is again, the intention is to transition this data correctly, but if there's any discrepancies, and when I say discrepancies, I mean maybe someone is listed as having an active LOC and they're no longer in your facility, or an LOC is tied to your facility and that person's not there, then you're going to want to email an encrypted Excel file to the call center. So this is the same call center that supports MWMA as well. So there's the email there. Again, we'll send all this out. And in that encrypted Excel file, you're going to want to provide the provider ID, the individual's first and last name, a date of birth, and their social. And then once you send that encrypted Excel file to that email address, and again, it is secure there, is you will want to follow up and send a separate email on top of that with a password to the encrypted file. And again, as the intention is we want to get this transition, everything correct, but if there is any discrepancies, please let us know. And then something else to note here is we do have some tips for success because you're probably thinking, okay, this is going to be a big transition. What do I need to do to get ready for my facility to get ready? So probably a lot of you have heard this but each facility needs to provide DMS the name of someone to act as the COG org admin, and we will be going into COG momentarily. So if you have not done so already, please email DMS at that KLOCS orgadmin@ky.gov email. The name of that individual, it can be up to 2, because that person is going to be responsible for granting access to KLOCS for all of your staff. And then some of you are probably wondering, okay, well, can we go ahead and grant people, assign a user role in KLOCS to my staff? Can they go ahead and create COG accounts? Yes, you can go ahead, and once DMS assigns you that role of org admin, then you can go ahead and start granting them access and sending them invitations. But note, that KLOCS tile won't appear in COG until August 3rd, 2020. So you can get set up, you're just not going to be able to get into KLOCS until then. And then also, other couple things to note is what we just discussed is verifying that all the LOCs were transitioned correctly into KLOCS. And then 2 other big things to call out here is it's really critical that everyone is timely in the submission of the LOC applications, because that start date is going to be driven by either the admission date or the application date. So if the LOC application is submitted less than 3 calendar days after the admission date, that start date will be the admission date. Now, if the LOC application is submitted more than 3 calendar days after the admit date, then that start date will be the application date. And then again, just a reminder, so we have going to be providing several training materials. So not only will these webinars be recorded, there will be a user guide, FAQ, job aids. There's going to be a lot of materials available online, and it's going to be at this KLOCS webpage with the URL posted below. So right now, the COG guides are up on that page. The training materials will be posted closer to go live, but again, all of this will be available to reference as well. So next up, we're going to do 2 more knowledge checks, just general questions, and then we'll pause and answer some of the questions. I know we've got a lot of different questions coming through. So first up is we want to confirm if your facility has stable internet connection to work on KLOCS related tasks. So again, this is just for our understanding, as well as if there's any concerns out there, then we're able to address. Give everyone a couple more seconds. All right. Give everyone I see a couple more answers coming in. So when it just slows down, I'll go ahead and close that poll. All right, thank you. And again, this just helps us understand. And so that way, if anyone does have any concerns, then we're able to reach out and support you during this transition. The other question we have is if your facility has the equipment. So when we see equipment such as a PC or a laptop to get into KLOCS, as well as a scanner to upload documents into KLOCS. So we are just wanting to know if your facility has that equipment to support those activities. Give everyone a couple seconds to answer. Once I see it starts to slow down, then we'll take a break and have some Q&A. All right, thank you everyone. And next up, I do want to pause here before we go and start talking about COG. I do have a couple questions that have come through, so I just want to take a moment and answer that. So one of the first questions is that when are they going to start getting a confirmation email that the org admin role has been assigned? That has not been sent out. So starting this week, DMS is going to start sending an invite to the individuals identified as the org admin. So I believe they may have started today, but you will see that throughout the week. So something to note there is when you do get that email, that the link in there is only active for 24 hours. So what I recommend is checking every day to make sure that you've got an email from COG. It would be a system-generated email from COG. Also check your spam folders because sometimes that email can get stuck there. And then click that link to complete that process. And then there's another question, a lot of COG questions coming in. Let's see, so how can we verify the COG email was received? I'm assuming that you have emailed DMS already. I believe you should have received a response. Now, again, there's a lot of coming through, so I would say generally within 24, 48 hours, if you haven't heard anything, just send a follow-up email to that KLOCS org admin just to confirm they got that. Another question I've had as well is related to if we're talking about if we're going from 7 days to 3 days for submission, if that's calendar or working days, generally that should be business days. So again, for calendar days, that has to do with application, but there are going to be some tasks that are driven by business days, which we'll talk more about tasks tomorrow, but we do have it highlighted if it is calendar days or business days.
Hey, Laura, I just also want to throw a note in for anyone who kind of joined after we have discussed how to submit your questions. Please make sure you're utilizing that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Once you type those questions in there, we'll be able to read your questions and answer those. Please do not raise your hand or submit any questions in the chat. This is a recorded webinar, so we're not able to utilize those features. So please, please, please utilize Q&A to ask all of your KLOCS related questions.
Thank you, Shakira. Yes, so what I'll do then is, since it looks like, let's see, here's some other questions is, for example, can there be more than 2 org admins? And if that admin's no longer employed, then how do we change that? So right now there's only 2 org admins, but what's critical is if let's say that org admin leaves the facility, then you need to email DMS at that KLOCS org admin inbox, and they'll be able to revoke that access, and then you can let them know who the new org admin should be. So what we'll do then is, since there's a lot of questions about COG, we'll go through and talk a little bit about that. So in terms of KLOCS, there is going to be protected health information, PHI, in that system. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that that information is protected. So not anybody can just get access. So if I go out there as an average citizen and just create a COG account, I won't be able to get into KLOCS. I'm going to have to be assigned a role in KLOCS. That'll probably be a provider staff role in order to get access to that system. So in order to access KLOCS, users are going to have to meet the following criteria. They either have to be part of an organization that handles LOC applications or an organization that handles those determinations. And then users are required to have their own Kentucky Online Gateway or COG account. We do not recommend sharing. Again, is everyone should have their own account, because when you do share, you run the risk of increasing the chance for a potential HIPAA violation, because if that individual leaves or someone else has your credentials, they could use that to get in the system under your name. The other thing to note here is that every time you log into KLOCS, that you'll have to complete multi-factor authentication. So if you've ever had to log into a system and it generates a 30-second code that you have to enter and click submit, that's what I'm talking about. It's just another layer of security, because we want to do all that we can to protect that information. And then in terms of account creation, so yes, starting this week, DMS is going to start assigning or inviting all the individuals to be the org admin. And then once they go through that process and set up their account, And again, friendly reminder, there is a org admin user guide available on that KLOCS webpage. Then they can begin inviting their users to, or assigning that provider staff role to their users. So what that means is they won't be able to get into KLOCS before August 3rd, but you will be able to get them set up. And then some people I know have been asking, what if I have an existing COG account, maybe for MWMA? Can I still use that same account? Absolutely. All that is the individual, you're going to need to give DMS that email address tied to your existing COG account, and they can assign that KLOCS role there. Big please note as well is when you do create a COG account, you're going to be asked to answer some questions for identity verification. So you'll be asked to enter your social security number, maybe answer date of birth, and then if you've ever lived in a certain county, on cards, if you've ever done that identity proofing before. And that information is not going to be stored in COG. It's just a way to confirm that you are who you say you are, because again, we want to do everything we can to protect this data. So next up, we'll go walk through what that process of logging in will look like. So again, this is not how you create a COG account. So we're starting from here of the, I have a COG account created and I want to get into KLOCS. So what the user will want to do is you're going to want to go to benefine.ky.gov and click on Let's Get Started. That will navigate you to step 3, which is that Welcome to the Kentucky Online Gateway page. So do want to call out here, if you are a state employee, then you're going to have a different login. You're just going to want to click on the right side where it says State Employee Login. Click where it says email address or that CRIS ID. If you're not a state employee, then you're going to want to click on the left where it says sign in. So just wanted to call that out, is there are 2 different logins on this page. And then next up is, depending on which one you click, so if you're not a state employee, then you'll see the top screen. So it'll say citizen or business partner sign in. So you're going to want to enter in the email address that you created your COG account with. You're also going to want to enter the password in that you're chosen. So you set your own password and then you click sign in. If you are a state employee, then you're going to see that state employee login and you'll enter the same credentials as well. And then friendly reminder, again, there are COG guides available on that KLOCS webpage for you to reference to assist with this process. And then once you click sign in, you're going to land on this My Apps page. And then you're going to see the Kentucky Level of Care System KLOCS tile. And then once you click that, that's where multi-factor authentication is going to come in. So you're going to see this MFA page on the screen, and it's going to say that you need to enter in that 6-digit security code from a VIP credential. So what you'll do is when you get to this page, you will all have already done this, but you will have downloaded this VIP access token onto your computer. And again, there is a MFA user guide specifically for this, on how to download this. And so what it'll do is when you click that VIP icon, it'll pop up a security code that will change every 30 seconds. You can either go back to the web page and type in that security code, or you can copy it and then just paste it in there. And again, this changes every 30 seconds, so you will have to be quick in entering that in. And then once you enter in that code and click continue, you'll go to the warning screen. And so what you'll want to do is review the terms every single time that you're trying to log in, and then click accept to log into KLOCS. And then once you do that, you're always going to land on the dashboard screen. So the dashboard screen, which we'll get into in just a little bit, that's where you're going to go every single time. And then also, other thing is, you're probably wondering, well, who do I call if I have questions? So on August 3rd, there will be a KLOCS contact center or call center available to answer system issues, COG questions, but that's not up right now. So in the interim, if you do have any questions about COG, then you're going to want to contact the COG help desk. Again, recommend everyone looking at those user guides beforehand, but there is that COG help desk. And then when KLOCS does go live on August 3rd, there will be that contact center. And then also a please note is, when you do call into that contact center on August 3rd or after, they are going to do some identity verification as well. So they'll want to know first name, last name, which organization you're with, and the Medicaid provider ID. So again, wanted to call those out, as well as when you do call in, they will ask for that information. And then a couple things in is we do just want to, I know a lot of people have been asking about this, but we do want to just confirm if your facility's already contacted DMS and to request an org administrator, or if that's something to do. I'll go ahead and launch that. And if you're not sure, that's okay. Again, we just want to take this information, and then if there is anyone who hasn't or is unsure, then we can verify that and follow up appropriately. Give it just another couple seconds. All right, it looks like majority of you have contacted. Again, it just helps us understand where everyone is in the process, because we want to help everyone get ready for when KLOCS does go live. And then something else that we were wondering about is if you're going to be using KLOCS on August 3rd, 2020, then if you already have an existing COG account, so for example, maybe you're already a state employee or you have MWMA access, or if you're planning, you're going to have to create a brand new own COG account. It looks like the majority of you, yep, will be needing to create your own COG account. And again, there are COG guides available on that KLOCS webpage, and the link will be available when we distribute this PowerPoint afterwards. All right. Next up, before I turn it back over to Shakira to talk about system navigation, what I will do is turn that over to, we do have DMS on the line, and so they're welcome to say a couple things about COG in particular.
This is Lee Geis, and I just hit answer live on the Q&A box for questions that I thought you had already answered, Laura.
Oh, okay.
While you were explaining. If you have more questions about COG, feel free to put them in the Q&A.
Thank you, Lee. Absolutely. Again, just looking through, and yes, it looks like you should be getting, again, an email or an invite from DMS this week. It'll be from COG, so it won't say the email was sent from DMS. It'll say that it came from COG. And then what I'll do next is go ahead and turn it over to Shakira, who will then go over system navigation.
Hello guys, so now what we're going to walk into, as Laura has already said, is some basic system navigation within KLOCS. So moving on to this next slide here, as I have stated originally when we were talking about our user guides that are going to be live on that KLOCS webpage, we have discussed how there's going to be different functionality guides that providers may view throughout the guides to kind of help navigate through and understand KLOCS as a system better. So on this screen here, this is simply just an example of what these functionality guides will look like within the training user guide. This one is specific just to the dashboard screen. However, throughout the user guide, there will be a lot of these functionality guides to help you with every screen throughout KLOCS. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it here. I just wanted to make sure that I reference that again. This is going to be within that training user guide, and it's a great reference point for when you all start to use KLOCS starting on August 3rd. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into a system demonstration of basic system navigation. Something that I want to note here, and I want to make sure that everyone can hear me well, Please make sure that your audio on your computer, on your phone, whatever you're using right now, please make sure that it is cut up. That way you can hear the audio on this system demonstration. This system demonstration illustrates basic system navigation in KLOCS. To successfully access KLOCS, users must log into the Kentucky Online Gateway, KOG, and complete the multi-factor authentication, MFA. Users must also review and accept the terms of use every time before accessing KLOCS. After accepting terms, KLOCS navigates to the home page, known as the dashboard screen. The dashboard is the default homepage for all KLOCS users. This is the starting point for any task or action that users complete in KLOCS. In the upper right-hand corner, users may view their login name, the facility or agency that they are aligned to, along with both the Sign Out and Help button. The top center panel contains the following functionality: Quick Search, which navigates to the Search Individual screen. On this screen, users may search for a specific individual associated with their facility. It's important to note that the Quick Search functionality allows providers to search for individuals who have either a PASAR number or an application number in KLOCS. Providers can only search for individuals who have or had a LOC tied to their associated organization. All other KLOCS users may search for any individual regardless of the LOC type or provider. Users can search for an individual using multiple identifiers. The more identifiers, the better the search results. Click Home to return to the dashboard screen. Next to Quick Search is the Message Center, which shows all notifications for all individuals related to that provider. The subject column displays the notification type with the name of the associated individual. By clicking the subject hyperlink, users may view the notification on the Message Center screen. After viewing the notification, users should click Back to Inbox to go back to the full list of notifications in the Message Center. Please note, the provider Message Center is different from the individual Message Center, which we will be discussing shortly. To go back to the dashboard screen, click Home in the top navigation panel. Next to Message Center is LOC Management, which navigates to the Manage Discharge screen. This screen allows users to request discharges or transfers. Users should search for the individual, then click Request Discharge to initiate a discharge or transfer. Click Home to navigate back to the dashboard screen. To start a new LOC application, providers click Start Application. Please note, only KLOCS providers have the functionality on the dashboard screen to start a new application. Finally, as demonstrated so far, clicking Home returns the user to the dashboard screen. The options under Quick Links on the left navigation panel varies based on the user row accessing KLOCS, but the following are a few important functions. Providers may select Start New Application here or on the top navigation panel. Users may access the Message Center, which shows all electronic notifications associated with the facility by clicking here or on the top navigation panel. Users may also access Quick Search to search for a specific individual associated with the facility here or on the top navigation panel as well. Users may also access the Manage Discharge screen, navigate to the Member View screen, view reports, if available, depending on the user row accessing KLOCS, as well as access other links such as the FAQ, map forms, policy documents, the CHFS website, or page help. The task table displays a task for the selected queue. Users may select one of the following queues: My Task to show all tasks assigned to the user, Nursing Facility to show all tasks assigned to the nursing facility, or Hospice Provider task. It's important to note all tasks may be started, viewed, or continued by any user associated with the facility. Please note, depending on the user role accessing KLOCS, the task queue varies. The Filter Columns option allows users to choose which columns display in the task section of the dashboard screen. To select a specific task to act on, click the radio button next to the task. After clicking the radio button, the buttons at the bottom of the table are enabled. The View History button displays the task history pop-up screen for that specific task. This information is read-only. It shows when the task was created, any actions that were performed on the task, who actions was taken by, and when. The Mark as New button allows users to mark the task as new. The Mark as Closed button allows users to mark the task as closed. To begin working on a specific task to complete, click Start or Continue to the right of the task name under the Action column. By clicking Search Task at the top right corner of the task table, users may search for a specific task. Users may also search tasks by who it's assigned to, task status, and task name. Just like the task table, users may start working on a task by clicking Start or Continue to the right of the task name under the Action column, once search results display. To go back to the dashboard screen, click the Back button or Home at the top navigation panel. It's important to not use the back button on the browser in the top left corner. Only use the back buttons that are a part of the KLOCS screens. The Applications table is beneath the Task table and displays LOC applications that have been started and saved but not completed by providers. By clicking Continue, providers may continue the LOC application intake process right where it was left off. By clicking Withdraw, the in-progress application may be withdrawn. Please note, only KLOCS providers have the Applications table on the dashboard screen. Now let's move on to the Member View screen. To navigate to the Member View screen, click Member View under the quick links on the left navigation panel of the dashboard screen. The Member View screen displays all individuals associated with the provider, along with their LTC benefit status, LOC status, LOC start date, and program code. Like the task table, users may filter the columns to display certain values. Users may also click on the individual's name hyperlink to navigate to their individual summary screen. Now, let's click the individual's name hyperlink to navigate to the individual summary screen. The individual summary screen displays the individual's information and their LTC information. The right navigation panel has several functions under the Action column, such as View/Print Actions, Assessment History, View or Upload Documents, View or Update Diagnosis, Message Center, which is on the individual level. This is not the same as the Message Center users may access from the dashboard screen. View Task, Request Level 2. Please note, this functionality is only visible to providers. And lastly, the Update Contact Details button. The View or Print Applications displays all submitted LOC applications for the individual and allows users to print the individual's LOC application if applicable. If users click Print, a tab opens that shows a PDF version of the LOC application and a button for printing. By clicking View, the user may view the LOC application intake screens with read-only information. Assessment History navigates to the View Assessment Details screen. This screen displays an individual's assessment details for each assessment. To view the assessment details, click the gray button next to the nursing facility assessments. Click the Back button on the KLOCS screen to navigate back to the individual summary screen. The View or Upload Documents button navigates to the View Documents screen. This screen displays all previously uploaded documents for the individual and allows users to upload additional documents outside of the application intake. Users may view previously uploaded documents by clicking the document type hyperlink, which opens a PDF version of the document in a pop-up box. It's important to note that documents with the status of pending are documents that have not been marked as complete by a reviewer and may be deleted on this screen by clicking the red X under the Actions column. Clicking View or Update Diagnosis allows users to view and/or update diagnosis as needed. Now let's navigate to the Individual Message Center. The Individual Message Center displays all electronic notifications about the individual that were sent to the provider. Additionally, users may view PDF versions of the correspondence sent to the individual. Please note, this is not the same as the Message Center users may access from the dashboard screen. Clicking View Task navigates to the View Task screen, which allows users with certain KLOCS rows to work on tasks associated with the individual. The View Task screen functions the same way as the Search Task screen, except it only displays tasks associated for the specified individual. The Request Level 2 button is only visible to providers. Providers have the ability to select the reason for requesting Level 2 for this individual. The Update Contact Details button allows users to select the individual or guardian, then update their contact information as needed. To access the program summary screen, users may click on the LTC program hyperlink under the LTC information table to navigate to the program summary. Once on the program summary screen, users are able to view program details, authorization history, and LOI comment history associated with the individual. Click back on the KLOCS screen to navigate to the individual summary, or click Home to return to the dashboard screen. This concludes the basic system navigations demonstration in KLOCS. Before we get started with our knowledge checks, I'm going to give it a couple of minutes for anyone to submit any questions in that Q&A box. If there's any questions specifically related to what you just seen with the system's basic navigation.
And then, yes, we've got one question about MAP 350 forms, if they'll be uploaded. Yes, the next section of this presentation will cover app intake, and then you'll see, I believe in that demonstration, it's the H&P form, as well as the MAP 350. We'll go over how to do the document upload. And then I know another question has to do, a lot of COG questions, is how do I find out if we have a system admin? What I recommend is there's that KLOCS org admin email that was described earlier. I would send that email, send them an email. It'll go directly to DMS, and then they'll be able to confirm if your facility already has an org admin.
Okay, so please continue to submit your questions. Like Laura discussed earlier, we do have a time allotted where we're just going to spend nothing but time on the Q&A. So please continue to submit those, even though I'm going to keep going with the webinar. So our first knowledge check question is, what is the homepage for all KLOCS users within KLOCS? And so I'm going to pull up this question here and go ahead and answer there. So far, we're doing great. Everyone is getting this one right. And just as Laura had said, once it slows down with the answering, I will close this one out, but we still have a lot of people submitting their answers right now. So the home page for all users within KLOCS is going to be that dashboard screen. So every single time that you click that home button, it's going to take you back to the dashboard screen. Also, as Laura demonstrated during her accessing KLOCS section, whenever you click on KLOCS, it's going to take you straight to that dashboard screen as well. So then our next question is going to be, the blank screen is where providers view an individual's contact information, access the individual's application, assessment history, notifications, and have the ability to upload documents. What is this screen called? You guys are doing great so far. Still have a lot of people answering, but so far so good. All right, so the screen is going to be the individual summary screen. So remember, you access that individual summary screen by clicking on any name within the system. And once you click on their name, it's going to take you directly to the screen dedicated to that individual, which again is going to be called the individual summary screen. And then our last poll question for this section: what screen should a provider access if they want to view the facilities, notifications, and correspondence? Oh, you guys are answering this one fast. You know this one. Give it a few more seconds. So yes, a lot of you got this right. It is called the Message Center. Something that I want to make sure that I stress here as well, because it was also noted in the system demonstration video. There are two different message centers within KLOCS. So there's a message center on the provider's dashboard screen. That is going to be for all providers' notifications and correspondences. And then there's going to be a message center specific to individuals on their individual summary screen. So there's going to be two different message centers. They are not the same within KLOCS. So good job, everyone, for getting that right. So next what we're going to do is we're going to jump into application intake and that document upload portion of the webinar. Something that I do want to note, because I don't want anyone to think that we're not answering their questions in regards to discharge and transfers. So we will have a demonstration specific to discharging and transfers tomorrow in part 2. So please stay tuned for your answers for that after you all see that system demonstration tomorrow. So within our application intake, it's going to be super important for you all to understand that there's going to be 3 unique identifiers that KLOCS creates for every individual. So on this screen, you're going to be able to see there's going to be an individual ID, a PAYSR number, and an application number. So for the individual ID, this number is created once providers create an LOC application for the individual within KLOCS. Then for the PAYSR number, so this is going to be created for the individual once the MAP 409 PAYSR level 1 is completed in KLOCS. KLOCS is going to generate this identification number. And then last but not least is going to be that application number. So this is going to be a system generated identification number assigned to each LOC application once providers begin the MAP 726 section of the LOC application intake process. Something to note in regards to that application number. A new application number must be created if the individual transfers to a new facility or if there is a change of ownership. Something also to note about these three identification numbers is providers may use all three of these identifiers to search for an individual specific to their facility by, again, remembering that system demonstration video. On the dashboard screen, you're able to click quick search. And then once you click quick search, you're able to use any of these identifiers to find the individual that you're looking for. So one other thing that I want to dive into before we actually see another system demonstration for application intake is going to be the Master Client Index, which is called the MCI. So the MCI is a centralized database that uses elements specific to an individual to check if they currently exist in the Commonwealth's Integrated Eligibility and Enrollment System, IEES. KLOCS uses MCI to confirm individuals are correctly linked between multiple systems. So as you can see on this slide, the MCI is going to check 5 different key elements. Those key elements are going to be first name, last name, date of birth, gender, and then last but not least, that social security number, the SSN. So all 5 of those things are taken into account. So then once those 5 elements are checked against the MCI, there are going to be 3 different possible outcomes for an individual. So as we can see, first is going to be that full match. This means that the MCI detected a perfect match with an already existing individual in IEES. So what this means is the individual's existing individual ID will be associated with the LOC application. So to give you an example, let's say there's 2 William Baileys within the system, and they have the same date of birth and the same SSN. What is going to happen here is they're going to just take that existing individual ID for the William Bailey that is already within the system, and they're going to tie that to that LOC application. The second outcome that could happen is no match, and this simply means that the MCI was unable to find a match with any existing individual in IEES. So what will happen here? A new individual ID is going to be created for the LOC application, and the individual's information is then going to be uploaded into IEES. And then last but not least, there's going to be this partial match. So partial match is going to be really big for DMS. The reason being, so if MCI detects that potential matches with an existing individual already within EES, a partial match task is going to be sent to DMS after providers submit that LOC application. Why this is going to be super important is because once DMS gets this partial match task, the LOC application will not be sent to the appropriate reviewer until DMS resolves the partial match. So what will happen? The individual will get a temporary or pseudo individual ID, and then they'll have that ID until DMS resolves the partial match task. Once DMS resolves it, the individual will either get an existing individual ID or a new individual ID. Something to note, well, let me give you an example. So for a partial match, let's go back to using William Bailey. So let's say that there's a William Bailey in IES, and then for the LOC application, we enter Bill Bailey. And they have the same date of birth, the same social security number. That is going to trigger a partial match task that is going to be sent to DMS. A big please note here is regardless of the MCI outcome, the provider is still going to be able to proceed with the LOC application intake process. However, yet again, as I've already stated, it just will not be sent to the appropriate reviewer until DMS resolves that partial match task. But it will not stop you all from being able to complete the LOC application. So now what we're going to get into is a system demonstration of application intake. Please note this is for PASAR level 1 only, non-swing bed. And again, I just want to make a note, please make sure your audio on your computer is turned up. That way that you can hear the audio on the system demonstration. This system demonstration covers how nursing facility providers complete a PASAR Level 1 non-swing bed LOC application KLOCS. On the dashboard screen, providers click Start Application on the top navigation panel or Start New Application from the quick links on the left navigation panel. The LOC application basic information screen displays. The red asterisks indicate which fields are required to proceed to the next screen of the application intake process. Providers should enter all required fields on the LOC application basic information screen. It's important to note, if providers are provided with more information about the individual than what is required, providers should enter as much details as possible during the application intake process. Click Next. On the Member Details confirmation screen, member details entered on the LOC application basic information screen displays. Providers should review for accuracy. If the information is incorrect, click Back to edit. If the information entered is correct, select I reconfirm the member details are correct as confirmed on this screen. Click Next. On the Contact Details screen, providers should enter all required fields marked by red asterisks on the Contact Details screen. Please note, the possible address match pop-up appears stating an address was not found exactly as you entered, but one that is similar was found. Please select the address you would like to use below. Providers should either click the radio button next to the appropriate address and select Choose and Continue, or select Enter the address again. If Yes is selected for Does the individual have a legal representative, KLOCS displays additional fields for providers to input the contact information for the legal representative. Before clicking Next, it's important to note that the Master Client Index, MCI, checks if the individual already exists in KLOCS. If there is an existing incomplete application with the same provider, an application under review with the same provider, or if there is already an active LOC for that individual, once providers select Next, then an error message will display. Click Next. The swing bed screen displays. Since this system demonstration is for a LOC application that is non-swing bed, select No for Is this an application for swing bed? Click Next. The MAP 409 PASAR Level 1 consists of 6 different sections, which in KLOCS will display as 6 different screens. On Section 1, the individual's admission information screen, providers should enter all required fields marked by red asterisks. Please note, the possible address match pop-up appears for a second time. Providers should either click the radio button next to the appropriate address and select Choose and Continue, or select Enter the address again. As we've seen on the contact details screen, if Yes is selected for Does the individual have a legal representative, KLOCS expands the screen and more fields display for providers to enter contact information for the legal representative. It's important to note clicking Save and Exit at the bottom of the screen will save the information entered up to this point by providers, leaving the LOC application incomplete. Providers may continue the application at a later time by selecting the LOC application from the Applications table on the dashboard screen. Click Next. Before we continue to discuss the remaining sections of the MAP 409 PASAR Level 1 screens, it's important to call out, depending on information entered on Sections 2 through 5 of the PASAR Level 1, KLOCS may display different screens. which can trigger 3 different review scenarios after the application is submitted by the provider. Number 1, PASAR Level 2 Serious Mental Illness, SMI, which will send a review task to CMHCs. Number 2, PASAR Level 2 Intellectual Disabilities, ID/Related Conditions, RC, Dual Diagnosis, which will send a review task to CMHC to then send a recommendation to BDID. Or, if no diagnosis is entered, the LOC application remains PASAR Level 1, which will send a review task to the PRO. For the purposes of this system demonstration, we will show every screen providers may see. On Section 2, Mental Illness Screen, if applicable, providers should enter the individual's diagnosis in the name of condition column and enter the source of information. Please note, this screen is not mandatory, but does serve as a gatepost screen if a diagnosis is entered. Providers should enter information on this screen if the individual has a current diagnosis or is suspected to have a diagnosis of a serious mental illness. Click Next. Once information is entered on the mental illness screen, Section 2B, Level of Impairment, and Section 2C, Treatment, displays. Providers should answer the questions appropriately. Click Next. On Section 3, Intellectual Disabilities ID screen, select the appropriate answers to the questions for 3A and 3B. Click Next. On Section 4, Related Conditions RC screen, providers should enter the diagnosis and source of information if relevant to the individual. Click Next. On Section 5, Exempted or Delayed Level 2 Referrals screen, select the appropriate answers to the questions for 5A, 5B, and 5C. Please note, this screen does not display if a diagnosis is not entered by providers for SMI or ID/RC dual diagnosis on Sections 2 through 4 of the MAP 409 PASAR Level 1 screens. Click Next. On Section 6, Signature screen, providers should enter all required fields marked by red asterisks that are not already pre-populated by KLOCS. Click Next. The MAP 726A screen displays and consists of 2 different sections, which in KLOCS will display as 2 different screens. On the Level of Care Request for Admission screen, providers should enter all required fields marked by red asterisks, including the Facility Physician's Information section. Please note, the Possible Address Match pop-up appears for a 3rd time. Providers should either click the radio button next to the appropriate address and select Choose and Continue, or select Enter the address again. The Relative Information section is optional. However, once the relative's name is entered, KLOCS expands the screen and more fields display for providers to enter the relative's contact details. Click Next. On the Patient Information section, while this screen is intended to capture a lot of patient information, there are only 2 required fields indicated on this screen with red asterisks. It's important to stress here that if providers are provided with more information about the individual than what is required, providers should enter as much detail as possible on the patient information screen. Next. On the diagnosis screen, providers should click Add Diagnosis to enter an admitting diagnosis in KLOCS. Once Add Diagnosis is selected, KLOCS triggers additional fields. Providers should enter all required fields marked by red asterisks and click Save once information has been entered. Please note, the diagnosis code field does not accept special characters. Providers may only use numbers and letters. The onset date field must be a date on or after October 10th, 2015. It's important to call out, in order to continue application intake, at least one diagnosis must be selected as admitting. The medication section of the diagnosis screen is optional. Providers should be aware of if the individual is on any medications and enter that information as applicable. Click Next. On the document upload screen, a list of the required documents displays at the top in the What is Needed table. KLOCS determines what documents are required based on the information entered during the application intake process. Documents that have not been uploaded have a red X in the status column. It's important to note that the MAP 350 Long-Term Care Facility Certification Form and H&P History and Physical Examination Form are mandatory for all LOC applications. Under the Document Upload section, select the appropriate document type from the drop-down. Click Browse to the right of the File field. A Choose File to Upload pop-up displays. Providers should select the appropriate document to upload by clicking on the document name and then selecting Open. In the Comments field, providers should add comments as applicable. Click Attach. Once a document is successfully uploaded, two things occur. The document's details populates under the Document Summary section, and a green check mark replaces the red X in the status column next to the document in the What is Needed table. Providers should click Attach Another Document in the bottom right corner and repeat these steps to upload all documents required from the What is Needed table. Please note, if providers do not upload all required documents, KLOCS displays an error message and does not allow the provider to submit the LOC application to the appropriate reviewer. Once all required documents are uploaded and show a green check in the status column, click Submit. A confirmation screen displays confirming that the LOC application has been submitted. Once this screen displays, providers may select Print Application Summary or return to the dashboard. This concludes the system demonstration on how to complete a nursing facility LOC application.
All right, and next up, so we're coming on 4 o'clock, so I want to go now to Q&A. So something to point out before we go through the other questions is, as we were going through that, you probably saw a lot of questions that you're already answering today on that paper form. So again, we just want to remind everyone that those questions are still going to be the same. It's just a matter of now you're going to be entering them electronically in KLOCS. And so now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A again. We've been answering questions throughout. And friendly reminder, if we aren't able to get to your question today, we are saving all those questions and they'll be utilizing them for a FAQ document. Let's see, a couple more questions about COG is coming in. So again, if you're not sure if you have a system admin or just want to double verify that DMS has that information, then you're going to want to reach out to the KLOCS org admin at ky.gov email. and then they'll be able to respond again. Give them 24, 48 hours to follow up. And if you don't hear a response from them by then go ahead and reach out again. In terms of where all of this is going to be stored, great question. So there is on the CHFS main page, there's going to be a KLOCS webpage, and on that webpage is going to be devoted materials for COG. So if you're an org admin, there's a COG guide for that, multi-factor authentication, FAQs. There's also going to be training materials. And when I say the training materials, there'll be a comprehensive user guide available. Recordings of these webinars will be available. And then if you don't want to watch the entire webinar, there will be micro videos. So anywhere from like 5-10 minute videos. So if you just want to remember, hey, how do I perform a task or do application intake? Great way to train your staff. So again, those materials will be available prior to go live, a couple days beforehand as well. And when we send out a copy of this presentation, we'll include the exact URL link to that.
Also, Laura, just want to call out for everyone. I see a lot of people still raising their hand. Please, please, please use Q&A at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions. We also had questions in regards to application intake. Will will the ICF need to complete a PASAR? So the answer to this is the system is not going to change any of those PASAR regulations or any of your workflows that you all already have in place. So if you don't complete a PASAR now, you're not going to be required to do it August 3rd when KLOCS goes live.
And then
Laura, if you can just jump into
H&P application. So yes, please upload the H&P with every admission as well. And again, the big thing to point out there is making sure that that has a physician's signature on it. Sometimes what will happen is it'll get uploaded without, and if that H&P is not signed, then the reviewer is going to have to send it back to send a task to you to upload the correct form.
We also had a question, will this also replace the MAP 24s used for admission and discharges of residents? The answer to that is yes, it will. In regards to legal representative, the question is the legal representative their POA, guardian? What is the definition for this selection? Legal representative would be something like a parent, POA, or guardian. It's not going to be their authorized representative.
Again, getting a lot of different questions in, and if we are not able to get to your question today, then we are saving all these questions, and there will be a more comprehensive FAQ document put together to get everything, to get the answer out.
And then in regards to business days, there was a question, does business days take into account holidays? The answer to that is yes, KLOCS will take into account all holidays.
All right, and then really quickly, since we do have DMS on the line as well, want to give opportunity for them if they'd like to add anything else at this time.
Well, this is Lee Geis again, and I'm trying to answer all the questions that I know the answer to. Some of them I'm not going to know the answer to just yet. They're all great questions. I'm glad to see that everybody's been engaged. So with the training, I see there's going to be more I mean, please note there's more training tomorrow, the second half, and some of these questions may be asked at that time or answered at that time.
Yep, agree, Lee. Tomorrow they'll be covering more on tasks and how we go over LOC management as well. And since we do have just about a minute left before we get to the 4 o'clock mark, again, just remember there is a part 2 tomorrow at the same time, and that we will be distributing these materials out after the webinar. So if you do have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to that clocsorgadmin@ky.gov email, and they'll be happy to assist, especially with the call questions. I know there was a lot today. So again, give everyone just another minute to submit any other questions. And then if you do have any questions that you didn't get to submit today, feel free to submit them tomorrow as well. All right, and in that note, thank you everyone for today. Appreciate everyone's time, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day.